I mean, Africa is increasingly connected, but it still has a very long way to go.
Right.
So the infrastructure financing gap, I think the latest estimate I've seen is something like, between 70 and $100 billion per year. So the gap, so the finance that's still missing there. So it's really huge. And if you look at a map of Africa, there's, like a few areas where infrastructure corridors are there, especially transport corridors are there, but there's still very big gaps. Now, what African countries are doing at the moment is they're negotiating their continental free trade area that will eliminate domestic barriers to trade. So for African countries to trade more with each other. And that's thought to, help diversify trading relationships, but also economic activities and overall boost African economies. The problem is it's all good and well that you can trade between Lagos and Nairobi, but if you don't have the infrastructure to do that, then you're not going to be able to do that. And I'm not just talking about roads, of course, it's very difficult, but also the ICT infrastructure that's needed for trading services, or the airport services, and so on and so forth. In some cases, when you're traveling in Africa, if you want to go from East to West Africa, for example, it may be easier to travel back to Europe and then down to Africa again, rather than having an internal connection. It really is a market that's underdeveloped there. So in that sense, for sure, Chinese companies have played a role. They have helped develop this infrastructure. Of course, there's a lot of issues there. There's, some projects that haven't been as successful as one would have wished for. But still, what Chinese players are doing is they're filling a gap. Now, it would be great if it wasn't only the Chinese, if it was also others that would get involved into this into this sector supporting Africa's infrastructure development.
And you mentioned ICT, I suppose that China is playing quite a big role there. Is that correct? Or I'm just getting my intuition wrong here?
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I mean, no, this is definitely true. I mean, China has been building infrastructure, ICT infrastructure in African countries. They've been getting contracts, in several different countries across sub-Saharan Africa, across North Africa. It's definitely something that's very much of interest and that's needed to modernize African economies. And that's also now sort of considered part of the digital Silk Road. So the part of the Belt and Road that sort of, expands digital infrastructure.